All right, let's talk a little more Indians baseball. And from 92.3 The Fan, the Indians beat reporter at that fine radio station over at the Halley Building. Matt Loede joins us. Matt, you were at the ball game again today, all weekend. Your thoughts? I thought it was a huge win for the Indians all weekend to take this series.
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. I mean, you've got a situation where they beat two guys who hadn't lost all season long on Friday night and again today in Yu Darvish. And, you know, give credit to the offense. I mean, a big hit by Asdrubal Cabrera to get a couple runs in the third inning, and then Jason Kipnis in the fifth inning takes one deep. And, you know, all the guys really wanted to talk about in the postgame was Ubaldo Jimenez and, you know, sticking up for their teammate, a guy who has had some rough goings early on this season, but stepped up today, 7 innings, didn't allow a run, and unfortunately Tony Sipp kind of ruined the shutout in the 8th inning. But give this team credit. They're playing good baseball right now. They're in first place by a game and a half over Detroit in the AL Central. And, you know, the sky's the limit right now. They're playing better baseball than I think a lot of people thought they would.
And you pointed out right there, I mean, Darvish was great. I mean, he had 11 strikeouts. But, again, Ubaldo, the knock on him is you don't know which Ubaldo you're going to get. But if he gets low in that pitch count and he carries it through 6th or 7th inning, you're like, we're in pretty good shape. He did it today.
And, you know, Mike, I think that the terminology that was used today a lot was effectively wild. I mean, he was effectively wild. I mean, you didn't know what you were going to get. He got 2 outs in the 3rd inning and then walked 3 guys in a row. And we thought disaster was on the horizon. Carlos Santana made 2 trips to the mound. Manny Acta made a trip to the mound to make sure the guys were on the same page. And then he gets 2 strikes on Michael Young and gets him to ground out. I thought that that was maybe the turning point in the game, only because at that point you felt like Texas had the upper hand. There was no score. And Ubaldo, like we said, was effectively wild, but he got it done after that. I mean, he really pitched a good game. His sinker was looking good. The slider was looking good. And after that, he really didn't run into any trouble, and he retired 10 in a row at one point. So the Rangers are a free-swinging team, and when Ubaldo is on, that's the kind of guy you want on the mound for a team that's going to swing at just about anything, and Texas was today.
And the story after the game, and the story before the game, too, was, you know, Scott Radzinski had been working with him, taking him off to the side, and was watching tape of him when he was effective in Colorado, and they were able to get him back to that place. But the consistency is being able to see him do that every game now, go back to where he was at one point.
You know, his velocity, too, is another big thing, Andy. And when you look at him, it's a guy who he drops his shoulder. And when he drops the shoulder, he loses a little bit of velocity. At least that's what we were told. And then last week in Chicago, they took him aside and they were working on this mechanical adjustment. And it seems so far, I know it's only been 1 game, but to have worked out. And I think it's something that we're going to continue to see with him throughout the year. I mean, talking to a couple of the beat guys after the game, you know, you're going to come to expect from Ubaldo some really, really good games like you had today, and you had in that Toronto game, the 2nd game of the year, when he threw 6 1/3 of no-hit ball. And then you're going to have some bad outings like Tuesday night in Chicago when he walked 6 guys, he was all over the place, and he was bouncing balls into the plate. I think you've just got to be patient with him, and hopefully we're going to get more of the return like today than you had last week in Chicago.
How about offensively? Is there anything that Jason Kipnis can't do? I mean, he leads the team just about every offensive category except
home runs. Yeah, home runs and runs batted in. And I mean, this is a guy who really has come a long way in just his 1 year of pro ball, to the point where I really felt in spring training, even though he was striking out a lot, I felt that he was going to be a guy, if it was going to be him or it was going to be Chisenhall. I liked where Jason Kipnis was in the spring. He had no competition really at second base. This is the first time in a long time, guys, I think you'll agree, probably since Robbie Alomar, that the Indians have a second baseman they can turn to on an everyday basis. Orlando Cabrera was a stopgap last year until Kipnis got up, and what's the first thing they did? They shipped Orlando out, which, you know, really was a move we saw coming. We knew it was going to happen. The Giants needed a guy that could come in and play second base. Cabrera was there for the taking, but with Jason Kipnis, he's disciplined at the plate. He's a guy that's been able to play the infield a lot better than a lot of people thought he was going to, from being a converted outfielder. And he's starting to lay back on pitches and, you know, just find his pitches. Today against Yu Darvish, a huge fastball right down the middle, and he took it yard. And, I mean, it's something that we've seen from this guy now day in and day out. He and Jack Hanahan, I think, are the 2 guys offensively that have stepped up more than we thought would early in the season.
What is the Johnny Damon factor here? This team seems to be playing with a little more confidence in just 1 week. And I don't know if that's just something we're seeing from the outside, something that we want to make believe is going on. Or is it reality? Has he kind of pushed this team in a little bit of a more mature direction?
I think the triple on Friday night really got him more engrossed with his teammates. It's like one of those things where when you join a new team and, you know, there's kind of that feeling out process. But when he got that triple on Friday night that took it from what was it, a 4-3 game to a 6-3 game, I think that really opened the door for him. And they kind of welcomed him even a little bit more than even they had before when Chicago. And, you know, in talking to him, I mean, he really is saying all the right things, guys. I mean, he's talking about being a teammate that wants to come out. He wants to mentor the young kids. He wants to play as much as he can. And it's kind of funny when you watch him defensively. Every time a fly ball is hit to left field, it's almost like that movie The Sandlot. He puts both hands up and he kind of does one of these, and you're like, oh my goodness. But hey, you know, all a left fielder needs to do is make plays. I mean, you're not asking him to be Ken Griffey Jr. in his prime, just like Shelley Duncan. Go out and make plays, and he's doing it.
But it's not just talk. I mean, he's been this way his whole career. It's not like, you know, he's just coming in here trying to fit in. I think this has been his MO his whole career.
It is.
I mean, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he is. He's a great guy. And, I mean, again, when you look at the fact that this is a young team that's got some talent on it, a lot of people didn't know if they would be able to add that bat in the lineup. Now they've got a bat in Damon, who a guy who, hey, if he hits 260 and does what he did last year in Tampa, a couple of home runs, couple of steals, decent on defense enough, I think that this team will be more than happy with what they got out of him and where he's at.
You're right, though. He did look scary. There's some fly balls in left field. He hit him out there. It made me remember the days back when I coached my kids. You hit it and you go, oh, please make that play. And then Aaron Cunningham came in, the defensive replacement, which Maniac has been doing all season long. Anyways, but right now, can you tell, just from being in there, you're in there every single day, how much things have changed in the clubhouse a little bit? Are they more relaxed with, well, you know, good sprinkling of veterans right now?
No, yeah, absolutely. I think the thing, too, Mike, is, you know, from that 1-4 start, they've really kind of formed their own identity, and I think the starting pitching staff is the key. I mean, when Masterson, Tomlin, Ubaldo, you know, Derek Lowe's had a tremendous start to the season, and even Jemar Gomez, those guys set the tempo. The offense is still a work in progress. But as I said in the spring, when you got Asdrubal, you got Pronk, you've got Kipnis now hitting the ball, Hanahan hitting the ball in the bottom of the order, I think this offense has still got a ways to go, but I think it's coming around. And you've got a bullpen with, right now, the guy who leads the majors in saves in Chris Perez. I mean, he hasn't blown one since opening day, and he will blow one again this year. Trust me on that. He knows that, and we all know that. But you know what? When you got a guy like Chris Perez you can give the ball to in the ninth, and Vinny Pistano, the strikeout artist that he's become, this team's a lot more well-rounded, I think, than a lot of people thought. And you're taking advantage of the fact that Detroit and Chicago are kind of have growing pains each in their own ways. Detroit certainly with the pitching staff right now.
All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room as we wind things down here. They're playing great baseball.
Yeah.
They're in first place. But the attendance
Why
is
isn't
in last
anybody
place.
going? Yeah. You know,
is it fair to say that the Indians are in first place and the fans are in last? I'm included. I'm a fan. I'm not going to. I'm in last place. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I've been here my whole life, and I don't understand it. You know, I thought maybe yesterday we'd have 30,000. I think we ended with 21.
There's no reason there couldn't have been 30,000 every one of these games, especially with fireworks on Friday, which were probably some of the best fireworks I've ever seen.
Yep. Right, and they do that week in and week out on Friday nights when they have the fireworks. You have the Dollar Dog nights. They give out stuff on Saturdays. Yesterday was Chris Perez Jersey Day. I think it's just, you know, maybe it's a lingering effect from last year when they were 30-15 and then kind of fell off the face of the earth. Maybe fans are just not buying into it yet. But you know what? Fans, if you're not going to these games, start buying in. It's going to happen. I'm telling you right now, this team is going to stay in this thing the whole year. Two reasons. Number one, it's the help of Major League Baseball. You got an extra wild card team. So even if they fall out of favor in first place, look at those wild card standings because they're going to be there. And number two, as I said, you got a starting pitching staff that night in, night out is going to be able to hang with Masterson, Tomlin, Lowe, Ubaldo, and Gomez. I don't know why people aren't going yet, Andy. I think it's just maybe kids aren't out of school. It's still a little cold outside. But trust me, fans, you're going to want to watch this team because this is going to be a fun team to watch as the summer progresses.
I don't think we're going back to the days of 455 ever again. I just think
no, you had a perfect storm.
I don't think the market can bear it anymore. I mean, I'm not trying to drink the Kool-Aid or anything, but look at what's happened to our town, and maybe it's just difficult for this team to get to the 30,000, 35,000 every night.
Well, you had the perfect storm. You had a football team that was gone for a while. You had a baseball stadium that was brand new, and people wanted to go. It was the in thing to do. You know, the economy was a little bit better back in the mid-90s, late 90s than unfortunately it is now. And, you know, the city was thriving. They were, they were kind of feasting on that whole new baseball atmosphere. And you always heard the theory of they woke up a sleeping giant back in the mid-90s and the late 90s when you had guys like Bell and Tomey and Baerga and Lofton. And fans are just a little skeptical still. But I think that if you get in the months of June, July, and August, and this thing is still where it is right now, I don't see why fans wouldn't want to come out. I mean, the Browns are a rebuilding team. The Cavaliers are a rebuilding team. This town should get behind somebody, and I think the Indians are the perfect team to get behind.
How much fun is Major League Baseball when you look at it right now? You got Tampa and Baltimore.
Right.
You got the Indians. And over the National League, you got Washington. I mean, right now, it's like baseball is like done a flip-flop almost.
Well, you got the young teams that are starting to find their way. And I mean, a team like Baltimore, nobody thought that they would be anything, but they've got that pitching staff. They've got some guys in that lineup like Adam Jones and Markakis and guys that are hitting the ball. And then you've got a team like you said before, you've got those older teams like New York and Boston they're just not able to continue to find diamonds in the rough, and they want to go out and buy players year in and year out. Well, guess what? Sometimes that doesn't work, and I think we're seeing it in New York, and unfortunately with the injury to Rivera, that team's going to have some issues trying to get back to the form of years past, I think.
All right, Matt Loede, thank you very much. Make sure you listen to him every day on 92.3 The Fan. You're on there too every once in a while, aren't you?
Follow him on Twitter, too.
Make sure you hit him up. So,
thanks, guys.
Thank you, Matt.